Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Hope you're having a good start to your day or had a wonderful day. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we will get underway with our topic of our discussion today. So let me share it. So Amritamani, do we have another session anyway? We're going to wrap up early
No, we
today.
do not have another next session now.
Okay, no worries. So we will do that 45-minute thing. Give me a sec. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, great. So let's get started with our opening prayers, and then we will conclude our discussion on the topic that we have been discussing about doubt, faith. So we'll get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurue Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Okay, so Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening to all of you. Let's continue our discussion on the shloka, but before that, like we always do, we'll start with our soul soup segment, where we are talking about success, happiness, and fulfillment series. And as part of the series, we're talking about remedy for stresses, Karam Yoga. And Karam Yoga, we have been expounding upon this topic, talking about what it means to practice Karam Yoga. That means we practice, first of all, focusing on the process, not on the result, no attachment to results, but doing our best. Doing things as if everything depends on us, and accepting things as if everything depends on God. Okay, both things have to go hand in hand. That is what Karam Yoga is. Now, practice the presence of God. We've spoken about that. No matter what we are doing, we can um, imbibe this habit of bringing God into the mix and remembering Him as frequently, as often, and as possible until it becomes our second nature. And we spoke about that. The what we need to think about is both my protector as well as my witness. And when you talk about witness, then it's okay. God is watching me, is with me, kind of a thing. We need to think about it and then create triggers, stimulus for ourselves to remember that, because in the thick of things, in our daily activities, we tend to forget it, especially when we are working, which in something which requires a lot of concentration, stuff like that, right? So it's very easy to get back to the regular thought process, forgetting God. The second thing we spoke about, the purity of intention removes stress. Another thing is the purity of intention behind what we are doing. Now, anything other than doing it for God is actually an impure intention. Okay, that is what causes stress. If our intention was completely pure, we would be completely devoid of stress. This is the rule. Now, purity of intention, we spoke that that means is seeing ourselves as servants of God. Now, I just want to elaborate a little bit more on this part. It's a very important concept. The moment you think about as a servant of God, you may think, does it mean I have to compromise on my self-esteem? Because there's a lot of focus or lot of emphasis on self-esteem in today's world, right? You need to have a good self-esteem and stuff like that. Actually, the true self-esteem stems from the fact, ironically, or which may be counterintuitive, the true self-esteem actually stems from an understanding that we are the servants of God. Now, you may say, how does that work? So from that humility that I am a servant of God, that true self-esteem would stem from. Now that means you are developing, it actually results when we have a purity of intention, it results in developing healthy self-identity. not a misplaced self-identity. Now, healthy self-identity, it does not arise from ego, okay, that false sense of pride that we have. Instead, it stems from humility, understanding that we are tiny soul, which is the eternal servitor of God, and we maintain that humility without being self-demeaning. It doesn't mean you are demeaning yourself. It just means you are accepting the fact and having that knowledge that although you are a tiny part of God, but with His grace, you can anything is possible for you. There is no limit to the potential that you carry. So both things have to go hand in hand. So self-respect or self-esteem stems from humility and not from pride or ego. And that self-esteem is not something that is shakeable by lie. Now, you say, how is it related to stress? Of course, part of our problem is what will God, not God, but the world think about me? Or am I going to measure up to their expectations? Or is that going to happen, right? All that stuff causes stress and anxiety to us as well. But this kind of an understanding would give you a lot of self-confidence. Anything is achievable for me because I'm a tiny part of God and I have the same potential as God, and I can become godlike with His grace. Now, when you know that power, that you have that power, it will bring in a lot of confidence and assurance as opposed to a self-demeaning attitude. So this is a key concept to understand. And then we are freed from the pride of doership as well. With His grace, anything is possible, and He's enabling me, happy to play along as an instrument, and anything is possible for me. Those thought processes always at the back of your mind, and that will not result in ego or the false sense of pride as well, and which will directly translate into a much more confident, assured living, which directly reduces the stress and anxiety and the fear and insecurities that we build in our life. That also causes stress, right? So understanding that we are servants of God. Why we are servants of God? Because we are eternal fragmental parts. Because we are His eternal fragmental parts, we have the potential to be like Him as well, as what scriptures are saying. So we have infinite potential in that sense. And that helps us develop a very healthy self-identity, stemming from the fact, reality, and our truth, not from a false sense of doership and pride that we build. That image can crash anytime, and then it can cause a lot of anxiety and stress in our life. Okay, so this is the key thing to understand. So purity of intention, it comes from the fact that everything, that this whole universe is created by God, right? So when the universe is created by God, including our self-identity, it is supposed to serve Him, right? Whatever, like if an entrepreneur creates a company, every part, cog and wheel of that company is supporting that enterprise. So constitutionally, we are supposed to serve God. And everything in this universe is doing that, except for humans, because they are endowed with an intellect, and they choose to become an enjoyer themselves. And that is where the problem starts. That bhog aspect that we think about, that's where the problems start, right? Yesterday we were having a discussion. They said that even with the things that we have in our life, right, we are endowed with so many things, so many things that come to our, right, a house, we get a house, we get a car, we get so many gadgets, things and stuff like that. Now there is a word called upyog and upbhog. So we end up doing upbhog, enjoying, and that causes the whole problem. When we do upyog, just use it for the purpose which it is there, then it becomes yog, right, instead of bhog at that point. So that mindset needs to be inculcated. Now let's move on to our topic that we have been talking about. Just give me a sec. All right. So this is the shloka. We are not going to get into the recitation today. I'll do it one time and then we will move to the topic of our discussion, because we'll stop at 45 minutes today. Agyascha shraddhadanascha samshayatma vinashyati nayam lokosti na paro na sukham sanshayatmanah. The shloka saying, persons who possess neither faith nor knowledge and who are of a doubting nature suffer a downfall. For the skeptical souls, there is no happiness either in this world or the next. Let's move on. This is the quadrant we started off with, said that there are three kinds of sadhaks with regards to their faith and knowledge. Both knowledge and faith is there. They are the top sadhaks. Then medium class is where faith is there, but knowledge is not so much there. And the third is lowest class sadhaks, where law and knowledge, firm faith, both are low or zero, or maybe even negative. You may be skeptical, and that is those are the people. That quadrant is what Lord Krishna is talking about. Uh, you know, uh, People who suffer a downfall not only in this life but in the lifetimes to come as well, until they start building that faith and knowledge. Faith and knowledge is, we may think it is optional, it is discretionary. Yes, it is discretionary. Nobody is forcing us to become spiritual or seek answers to the deeper questions in life. Nobody is. But if you think deeply about it, it is actually not discretionary. It is mandatory as humans. Why? Because you may choose to do it now, or you may postpone it. If you postpone it, you may do it after 10 years, or you may do it after 20 years. Or if you don't do that, then you may have to do it in next life. You don't do it next life, you have to do it in some other lifetime. So finally, you will have to bow down in front of Maya and start making progress, because that is the purpose of this creation. If you're not fulfilling the purpose of this creation, you're happy in your mundane life. I mean, you are thinking you're happy. It's just a matter of time before you will have to pick this up. There is no choice. There is no plan B or plan C or plan D in life. This is the only plan of the universe for you. And and the reason for that is because God wants us to be happy and we want ourselves to be happy. And happiness is when you choose God. So there's no other way. You are seeking happiness. We all are seeking happiness, but seeking in a wrong direction. And it's just a matter of time before we figure it out. And now how long we take, it's personal journey, but it's just a matter of time before we start choosing real happiness, as opposed to this facade of happiness that we are stuck with since time immemorial. So let's continue to build that. We spoke that, this two-legged animal yesterday we spoke about. If, the Agyascha, when we talk about it, this Agyan is basically when we limit our activities in as a human to only those activities which even animals perform, right? So that's not a big deal. That life is a glorified or a deluxe animal life. So it's pointless to continue spending our time. uh, it's more like leading a life of an animal on two legs, right? So that is the first thing we spoke about. Then we said that the next thing we spoke about, this example of Shraddha, basically people who have no faith in scriptures, right? Now, if you look at, right, there are a lot of people who reduce or trivialize the Itihas Puran, which is Ramayana and Mahabharata. And they say, it's all symbolic. It's all symbolic. The actual thing is, all these are five horses are five. Of course, Kathopanishad talks about that, but they reduce it to those metaphors only and say there is no significance. These events happened or not, we don't have any belief in that. They actually, the word that is used is Indian mythology. Myth itself means something which does not exist, right? So even the historical events, they have been reduced to symbolic references and stuff like that. And then they say then when it comes to scriptures, we don't have a belief, right? Where did the scriptures come from? Because everything has an author. So they think some sage with a long beard wrote it, right? These all the shlokas, and they don't get the true part of it, where God is saying basically that these are Aparushe manifested by me, and the whole purpose of reading the scriptures is to know God. The belief is not there. Okay, then when that belief is not there, what happens is, I'll tell you a story. Are you able to see my screen, by the way? Just give me a sec. The screen is visible?
जी विजिबल जी.
Yeah, cool. Just give me a sec. Right. So when we talk about our faith aspect of it, right? So there was a Katha Vachi, basically a Gita Pandit. He was an Ayurvedic Acharya. He was called for a discourse to the temple, right? So his name was Brihaspati. So he came to the temple on to speak on the topic of Ayurveda, and he quoted a lot of shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, left, right, and center. Okay, during the part of his discourse. So he was quoting Bhagavad Gita throughout. And then the everybody was very impressed. This person has a very good understanding, and he's a Pandit of Gita. And a lot of verses that he quoted, even priests did not know there. And then then after he was done with his discourse, he was asked that to draw a conclusion for the, for a practical application of Bhagavad Gita in life. So they asked him to draw some conclusion from Bhagavad Gita for them. So now they were expecting that he's going to pull out some of the stuff like 9.34 is there, right? Man manam bhav mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru and stuff like that. That God is saying, always think of me, be devoted to me, worship me, offer obeisance to me. Or maybe 18.6 is which is an executive statement of Bhagavad Gita, like Sarv dharmam parityajya mam ekam sharanam braj. But instead he quoted, I think, something from 17th chapter, which speaks about Ayu Sattva, Bal Arogya. Basically, he's saying what Bhagavad Gita, the true import of Bhagavad Gita is that persons in the mode of goodness, they prefer foods that promote lifespan, increase virtue, strength, health, happiness, and stuff like that. Now, the point here is that we understand it, but then we don't get the true import of scriptures, or we don't have faith in other things. We selectively pick it up. Yesterday we spoke about being selective about our picking up stuff from that, and out of entire Bhagavad Gita, he picked the selective, which was relevant to his Ayurveda alone. Okay, without focusing on the true message of Bhagavad Gita, which goes into greater depths than that, right? So even after reading scriptures, miss the real point. And same thing happens even in our life as well. We go through Bhagavad Gita, not Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and then we doubt, did Krishna really exist? Did Ram really exist, or is it more of concoction of some sage or our minds kind of a thing? So but Lord Krishna is saying, have firm faith around it. Even in fact in 4.9, Lord Krishna goes on to say, Janma karma chame divyam yo veti tattvata. Basically, the one who understands that my janma and karma both are divine. Like, it's not a concoction of somebody's mind or he has become any less than God. They truly understand it. So have faith. Have faith around these principles, even if it doesn't make sense right now. In due course of time, it will. So if we don't put faith in this and continue to be skeptical, then we continue to lose out on that, is the key message here. Right? Now, continuing on this, the next one is talking about Sanchaya Atma, right? So Sanchaya Atma, that is a topic we've been talking here as well. So I'll quote a few things here. Now, Sanchayatma means when you are, what is the difference between doubt and doubt and skepticism? It's the level of faith which is out there, right? What Arjun is asking, he's having doubt, but he's putting faith in Krishna's word. Skeptical means the level of faith is not there. You are trying to prove somebody wrong. You are just getting into a reconfirmation bias. You're already predisposed to thinking that this is not right, and you just want to prove your point. That is being skeptical. And doubt is you genuinely want to understand something. The level of faith is there, that yes, I have an openness around what I want to understand, and you inquire submissively, and you get the answer. So there's a thin line between these two things. Are we doubting or are we being skeptical? It's a question of self and introspection. How we are looking at this whole thing. So that's the key thing here. Now, Sanshay can actually lead to downfall, and there are a couple of stories that in our scriptures that illustrate that point. One is already Swamiji has been telling about it in at the start of Ramayana Ram Katha itself. To set the precedent for us humans, Sati enacted a Leela. Sati is Parvati, right? Parvati enacted a Leela. Now, what Leela did she enact? So what happened is both Shiv. So the way this whole communication or the dialogue of Ramayana is actually a conversation between Shiv and Parvati. And then that has been documented or captured by Tulsidas for us, right? So there was a time when Lord Shiv and Parvati, they went to Agastya Rishi to listen to Ram Katha. Lord Shiv's Ishtadev is Ram and Lord Ram's Ishtadev is Shiv, right? So Lord Shiv gets ecstatic. He gets thrilled whenever he gets an opportunity to listen to Ram Katha. So he goes to Saint Agastya, Sage Agastya, to listen to Ram Katha, and Sage Agastya actually bows down in front of him. So Parvati thinks, okay, he's bowing down in front of my husband, so what is he going to tell us, kind of a deal. So she became skeptical, right? Sanshayatma, she became skeptical what Lord Krishna is talking about. So what happened? Although Agastya told the entire Ram Katha, which Shiv listened to with rapt attention and faith, Parvati missed out some of the key elements, right? So when this thing happened, and she basically, when she saw Ram Katha was also unfolding, although they had heard about it, and then she saw Ram in deep agony on losing Sita. So this Shanka manifested in her head, and that prompted her to check out Ram. Okay, is he truly God? Because God is supposed to be never. God is called Satchidanand. He should be ever blissful. He should be in perfect knowledge. How can he lose the knowledge that my wife, where is my wife? How can he be searching for his wife? So she thought, let me check out, whether he's truly God or not, because he was wailing and all. So she took on the form of Mother Sita and sat in front of him. But Ram being Ram, right, said, Mother, what are you doing here? So then she immediately left. And then when she went back to Shiv, now Shiv considers Ram as a spiritual father. So when she took on the form of Sita, technically she became his spiritual mother. She said, now I have to let go of you. Okay, I have to basically let go of you because you took on the body of my spiritual mother. So anyway, that was a Leela. And then she finally subjected herself to fire and then came back again as Himalayas Putra, married Shiv again. And then she said, all that is fine, but then the doubt still remains. And then Shiv rectifies her and says, you know what, you never had doubt. You did that Leela to tell people, don't put your buddhi or intellect in God's Leelas. You will get it wrong. You cannot understand. If you could understand God's Leelas, there would have been no difference between your intellect and God's intellect. That means you consider your intellect at par with God's intellect because you can dissect God or understand his Leela or the purpose of his Leela. But intellectually, we are not there. So there is no point in putting your buddhi in God's Leela. You may end up doing self-destruction is the key message in this particular shloka. So Parvati enacted that. And then there's another story of Janmejay. Janmejay was a son of Parikshit. As a 6-year or 7-year-old, he lost his father because he was bitten by a snake, which resulted in him becoming very vengeant towards snakes. And he started doing a yagya and calling in snakes and devouring them in the fire, right? Until a sage came and said, don't do that, okay? He said that, but this happened. He said there are certain things which is called honi. Honi means something which is meant to happen. Okay, go again. We cannot intellectualize that as well. Like for example, he said Lord Krishna was very much present during the war of Mahabharata. It was like a pre-First World War. Okay, bigger than that, mother of all wars. I don't know how many billions of people died in that. So he asked, he could have avoided all that stuff, right? But it was meant to happen. It's God's will. And why it's God's will, God only knows. Sometimes it requires a resurrection, maybe a reconstruction. When the cancer spreads so much in the body, sometimes it needs to be done ground up again, right? So only God knows. We cannot intellectualize this whole thing. So he said, why did it happen? Why did Lord Krishna let it happen? So he said, it is called Honi. He said, what is Honi? He said, Honi is something which is meant to happen no matter what you think or do. He said, how is it possible? I believe in self-effort and I can change anything. So Vedavya said, if you think that, then I'm going to tell you something and see if you can do something about it. Okay, I'm going to tell you that don't do horse riding, 5 years from now. And if you do, don't go on a white horse. And if you go on a white horse, don't go in north direction. If you go in north direction, don't, fall for a girl on the way. If you fall for her, don't bring her back and marry her. And if you marry her, then don't fall for her word to kill a Brahmin. But I'm telling you, you'll still do that. That is called Honi. So Janmay says, no, I will stop horse riding and I will avert this whole thing, which you are calling as Honi. So he said, sure. And then after 5 years, he gave up horse riding. But as the time started approaching, his urge to do horse riding, because he was a Kshatriya, right? It's like depriving yourself of a key drug. It started building up. Until one day he decided, okay, I'll do horse riding, but I'll not ride on a white horse. He said, bring in the brown horse today. So then they went out to search for a brown horse, and then the servant reported, the brown horse is sick. I could find only the white horse. So his heart skipped a beat. He said, nevertheless, I'm not going to go into the north direction. So let me just ride it. And he started riding and started hunting a deer, and it took a turn, and he, in the thick of things, he forgot the sense of direction and he was taking south direction. And after a while he was feeling thirsty and he saw a pond and he started having a water, and then there he met a girl. He fell for her, love at first sight, no divorce at first sight. love at first sight. He rode her back, married her as well. Okay, married her as well. And then when the ceremonies were going on, or after marriage, there were no Brahmins and their kids were there. They were doing the rituals there. And during the course of that rituals, the wind blew and threw off her cloth. And the kids, being kids, right? They were little boys. They started laughing. And she thought she was being mocked at. She ordered, kill them. And this guy, he was already a henpecked guy, fallen in love with that girl, and he killed them on her orders. And when you kill a Brahmin, okay, it's one of the Pancha Mahapaps. If you go read our scriptures, it says it is one of the Pancha Mahapaps. Stealing gold, killing Brahman, uh, there are a few other things as well. Even consuming intoxicants, they are one of the Pancha Mahapaps, and the sin, basically the uh, punishment for that is leprosy, Kusht Rog, that they call it. And he started having leprosy. Then it reminded him, Vedavyas had told him, the Sony, and then again he goes back to him. He says, you know what, can you please do something about it? I remember now you had told me it's Sony, it has happened. Now what do I do about it? He said, all right, if you do one thing, then go to Vaishnapai. Vaishnapai is reciting Mahabharat. As you will keep reading, listening to each chapter of Mahabharat, you will start getting cured. Okay, but don't put a doubt. Whatever he's saying, have firm faith. Don't doubt. But then you'll have doubt also. So nevertheless, he goes there and he starts listening with intent. So this is Mahabharata is a conversation between Vaishnapai and Janmejay, which was documented by Vedavyas, right? That like Ramayana is a conversation between Shiv and Parvati. This was a conversation between Janmejay and Vaishnapai. So Vaishnapai keeps on narrating and he starts getting cured. Until close to his knee, he comes to a chapter which says, Bhim had so much of force that he would, pull an elephant and throw it in the sky. And it will go with the escape velocity, we call it, right? Which can go beyond the orbit of Earth and starts having that centripetal force of a satellite. They will start rotating around in the Earth. And he started laughing. What kind of a joke it is, right? Who can have such a power that you throw an elephant into the air and it becomes a satellite? He doubted. But Vaishnapai raised his hand and thud came an elephant down below, from that orbit to prove that what he was saying was truth actually. But because he doubted, that little part of his was remained uncured and it spread to his body and finally he died. Now again, doubt comes. So in our case, see, we don't have the benefit of Vedavyas and things like that. We are also causing the harm to ourselves, right? Like Janmejay and Sati gave an example, right? Now, those were extreme things that happened to Janmejay and all. But in our case, the extreme thing is anyway taking a human birth time and again. We don't know how many steps we take forward and how many we take backwards when we put doubt in Leelas of God. When we participate in discussions and entertain thoughts like, oh, why did this happen, or did this happen, or putting a question mark, no, this makes sense but this part does not make sense. Or some people will come and say, you know what, God is projected in a bad light in this story, so this cannot be true. All that is putting a question mark in God's leelas, which is called namaparad, and it puts our spiritual journey back with time. So the simple policy is suspend it. If it doesn't make sense, suspend it. Don't jump to a judgment in your head that, you know what, this is lie, this is not this, that. It's fine. If it is not relevant to our spiritual or devotional journey, simply suspend it. In due course of time, it will make sense. But don't jump to a conclusion and start participating. This makes sense, this doesn't, because who are we to analyze and intellectualize that? Yes, Shyamji, you had a question?
Yes, one small doubt we have. Can you please explain who's Janmejay and Vaishnapai again?
Okay, Janmejay is the son of Parikshit. Parikshit was the son of Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu was the son of Arjun. Okay, and Vaishnapai was a sage. So that is the relationship. So Janmejay was great great grandfather was Arjun. And Arjun was the gentleman who listened to Bhagavad Gita on our behalf, and we are reaping the benefit right now. So that was the relationship. Okay.
Thank you
Janmejay
so much.
was
So when you say honi has to happen, so होनी तो होके रहती है, कुछ करे चाहे ना करे.
true.
तो
But
अगर
the thing is, yeah, go ahead, finish your thought, and then I'll tell you. Yeah.
if Janmejay had to die because of certain disease or certain thing, it had to happen. no matter had he not gone to the jungle, had he not gone on the black horse or white horse, had he not met the lady, had he not married her, had he not done all those things which sequence happened, it had to happen. But because it had to happen, you mean to say it had to happen because of all those things. Is that so?
No, they Honi aspect is fixed. Okay. Now the interesting thing here is that doesn't mean we become fatalist, because what is Honi and what was well within your Purusharth, right? Or what was Prarabdha that you could have diluted, we will never come to know. Okay. Now, if we take refuge in Honi as an excuse, this is to be a Honi, then again you are doing Ishwar Tushti. See, God is holding all the cards. But what cards he's holding for you, you don't know. So you can only focus on your self effort. I cannot say this was meant to be a honi. Who are we to know that it is a honi, or was it part of my own doing in this life because of my lack of effort? We will never come to know about it. So the point that Vedvyas was trying to make, he was telling there are certain things which are fixed. We will never come to know. But in case of Janmejay, he could see that and he could tell him, just to tell him why Lord Krishna did not avert the war. There are things which are needed and probably not required. I'm saying they just meant to happen. Okay, it could be needed, it could be for another reason, but what he was trying to tell him that something that is meant to happen is meant to happen. So don't question those things. You will not understand. Maybe one day you will become godlike, you will understand everything is happening perfectly for a reason. Maybe leprosy was a result of some of his past karma, right? It could have happened because of that. He was not given the benefit of that story, but the honi is something which will happen. Nobody can do anything about it. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All right. So basically, yeah, Vaishnapai was a disciple of Vedvyas, so Sandhya's added that. So thank you for that. And also the feedback tracker part of it. So that's good. So this is what we are now. There's a three-way, the faith, when we talk about what we spoke about this farmer story as well, right? We cannot do selective faith. Selective faith is very dangerous. It is more convenience-based faith. This makes sense, this does not make sense kind of a deal, and I'll pick up the stuff. So you cannot say that I'm only going to have, the golden egg and not feed, right? So I'm going to selectively pick up scriptures pay as per my convenience or as per my understanding. Doesn't work that way. You have to take everything and not put doubts. This does not make sense. That our intellect is tiny, very tiny. We cannot understand that. So when you start listening to scriptural knowledge, take it completely. Don't dilute it in your head by saying this makes sense, this does not make sense. Okay, that will not take us very far. Now, what are the three-pronged? Okay. Now, faith needs to be on three things, three-way faith. When we talk about Sanshyatma, we are talking, what is the faith? One is you need to have faith on your Ishtadev, that your Ishtadev will take you beyond, the ocean of Maya, right? Whether your Ishtadev is Mahadev or Lord Ram or Durga Ma or Krishna, Radha, whoever it is, whoever is your chosen Ishtadev, whom you are deepening your relationship with, all are same, by the way. They're not different because God is God. They are just the different forms of energies, whichever energy you associate to, right? You should have a firm faith. You cannot be doing changing. Oh, no, no, this is not. And no, no, let me do a little bit of Ganesha. Let me do a little bit of that. No. Have firm faith that your Ishtadev, right, is God. Right? It's a form of God, right? It's God himself, God personified in that particular form. And you don't need to hedge your bets that, okay, now let me change my Ishtadev and do this and that. No. Settle for one with an understanding that it's this, you don't look at different gods as basically uh, uh, any less or any more. Basically, all are same. So have that firm faith on your Ishtadev. Second is have faith on your path, right? Path of devotion. Scriptures are telling us, especially in the age of Kali, that's the only path. Have firm faith that your path is solid and it has the ability to take you across this ocean, right? It's not like, let me do a little bit of devotion, or let me do a little bit of this mudra, that mudra, let me do a little bit of kundalini, let me try this. All that will also not. So have a firm faith that whatever path I have chosen is going to, has the ability to take me across the material ocean. And then third, most importantly, have faith on your guru that he has the ability to take you across this ocean of Maya. So these three-way faith, firm faith you need to progress on this path. Because if you don't have that faith, then you will be all over the place, basically. All over the place. You'll be changing things, gurus and then Ishtadevs. We are a little bit of that, little bit. Okay, last time I went to Vaishno Devi. My Mannat got, so the my Vaishno Devi is there. I went to Tirupati Balaji, did not happen, so that doesn't work. It will be like all over the place. It doesn't work that way. And also with your path, you got to be rock solid. Devotion is basically you don't need any other support. If you have devotion, you don't need anything else at all. So that faith needs to be very rock solid. Otherwise, you'll be doing a little bit of that, a little bit of that. It's like digging multiple wells, not getting water in any. So these three things, once you have solid thing, your faith on your guru, faith on your ishtate, faith on your devotion, nothing else is needed. Then you can progress confidently on the path. Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
Yeah. So, faith on Guru, will that not automatically include the other two?
Faith on guru will do, but I'm just putting out the condition. I mean, if you do one, will it result in other two? Possibly. They are reinforcing in a way, but the key is all three you have to be pakka, right? If you have faith on your guru, of course, the path that he's telling, you'll have faith on that as well, right? And the Ishtadev that he's saying, that is that. So yeah, if you have to pick one of these three, sure. But if you have a faith on Ishtadev, not on Guru, Guru takes care of the other two aspects as well. But it's important you have, like Guru may be talking about different gods as well, right? And then you say, okay, a little bit of this, little bit of that. No, that also has to be pakka. One Ishtadev, you settle down. That basically is good enough because now you're deepening your relationship. That Ananyata aspect is coming as well. And on your path as well, you need to have firm faith on your path and not get sidetracked when people start talking too many things about too many other things as well. Especially in today's age of information, there are so many distractions, right? um, Especially devotion is looked down upon something as a stepping stone for something much higher. Now Lord, basically in Ram Katha, Swamiji is explaining so beautifully, King Janak, he was already a Brahma Gyani, but he's got his mind tugged towards, when he saw Ram and Lakshman. And he was not able to understand, he's Vide, he's beyond body. He's already situated in Brahma Gyan. And why is his mind getting attracted towards Saguna Sakar? Right? If Nirguna Nirakar is the ultimate thing, he should have not felt anything at all. Why is his mind getting tugged towards Saguna Sakar form of God? Until he could put one and one together and say, it looks like this Nirgun Nirakar, which I worship, it looks like the personified form of that. That is why I can't resist but get attracted towards it, right? So Saguna Sakar, that puts things in perspective, right? So that is why it's important to have firm faith on your path as well, because scriptures are telling us, Guru is telling us, and that alone should be good enough. One last thing I want to tell, and then we'll take a couple of questions. So important thing is, even when we are going through the scriptures, right? Look at this Johnny, little Johnny. What it does is, you see, there are gold coins, and then there are nickels. So what he does is, he steps over the gold and goes to the nickels. Okay. So what it means is we also do the same. We will read the whole Ramayana and then start questioning why did Ram killed Bali and stuff like that. We don't think about the things which help our devotion, but intellectualize things which are beyond our understanding at this point. So it is called stepping over gold to pick up nickels. Okay. Now, Swamiji, somebody asked this question to him as well, so he started smiling. He said, "Who said that Ram did that to Bali?" He said, Ramayana says that. So he said, that means you believe in Ramayana. He said, yes, I believe in Ramayana. He said, Ramayana also says he's God. He said, yeah, he says God. And he said, the scriptures also, basically Ramayan's God is perfect in all ways. His Leelas, his everything is perfect. Then if you believe that, why are you selectively picking up one thing around it, right? So there's a reason for that as well. It will make sense in due course of time. So focus on things that help your devotion as opposed to getting hung up in things, right? Who's Angad's sister's brother-in-law's kid's name? Tell me that. I mean, how will it help us on devotion? So people get stuck in that. So when we listen to Ramayana and things, we need to focus on the segments which actually help our devotion as opposed to getting hung up in things which may not make sense to us at this point. Yes, Shyamji, and then Monica ji. We'll take two hands and then.
Abaji has a concern, doubt. What if you pray to multiple Ishт Dev? Is that wrong?
It's not wrong, Abaji. Is it a doubt or a concern? First, tell me that. Okay. It's not wrong. It's not wrong at all, Abaji. We can talk more about it. It's not wrong. But the thing is, you don't have Ananyata. Why would you do that? There could be two reasons. One is your intellect is not convinced that God is one. Right? You may think that they are all gods, and then if one does not do, somebody else might get upset, or if one does not listen to me, somebody else would, right? So you're hedging your bet. So first is the understanding aspect of it, that they are different, right? They are not the veritable form of my same Ishtadev. And second could be the reason for that could be that you may think, that you've already built a connect, so you want to please everybody a little bit here and there and all, right? So it is stemming out of that understanding that they are different, or they all needs different attention or special attention, right? But when you understand it's a form of the same God, then you don't need to do that. You can simplify your altar. In fact, that will help you simplify your bhakti as well, because now you have started channelizing your thoughts to one. That ananyata will come, the depth will come as well. It's like now you're not digging multiple wells, you're digging one well that will give you water. Typically, that's how it happens. It's like, can we fall in love with 5 people at the same time? We cannot. We can fall in one person at the same time, right? I mean, and with intensity, of course. So same thing when we have ananyata towards our Ishtadev, and you see the other forms of God, your Ishtadev in other forms as well. That helps you progress faster. But there is no nished as such, and our scriptures don't do that. You could continue to do that. It's just that it will take you longer, right? Because your mind is not settling down for one form. It is scattered right now, while it doesn't need to be. That's all it is. I hope that answers your questions. But yeah, if you think a little more nuanced discussion is needed, we can certainly have that discussion. Yes, Monica ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
So, Nitinji, the Brahma Gyanis are in the knowing of Nirakar Brahma. So, I am finding it a little difficult for them to basically to accept that. How could they not be in the knowing of Sakar Roop also? I mean, because it's Brahma Gyan, right? Or is it more of an acceptance thing that Nirakar, and then they just don't want to believe the Sakar? Because if you compare both, like someone who believes in Sakar, somebody like us, like how Swamiji also teaches, that there are both Nirakar and Sakar both. But Nirakaris are, they want to stick to Nirakar. So is it because of acceptance, or Brahmagyanis also are not aware that Sakar eventually is not Sakar?
They have always worshipped God like that, right? So they build that kind of an attachment towards God. For them to look at God, see, the Swamiji was telling, right? For you, if Jagannath Murthy is standing like this with you, for you it is easy to accept him, that okay, God can be like that, right? But if the same Jagannath, comes out and start having chena pudi or golgappas here in the market, you will be very difficult for you to accept. Oh my God, how could it be God? Right. So similarly for Nirakaris, you think God is all, but how can you limit him like, somebody in form in front of you, and it is just a stepping stone to something bigger. God is omni. It's very difficult for them to do that. So when you have worshipped it like this all along, and in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, I will meet you the way you want me to meet you. So when they have always worshipped like a light, God will say, hey, tricked you. Actually, I look like this. You always thought I was light, but I'm like this. So he's not going to do that, right? If you worship him like an old man, he'll meet you like an old man. If you worship him like with big eyes and with the different complexion, he'll meet you like that. In whatever form you worship him, he will meet you the same way. And if you worship him light, he will meet you as light only. Because that is what they want to. They want to merge with that light, that effulgence. And he's not going to tell that, okay, no, by the way, I've got a personal form and you have an opportunity to serve me and live with me and be part of my pastimes. He will not, unless you get an exposure to a sick saint and you are intellectually convinced. Even now, I'm telling you, there will be a lot of people in the session. They will ask the same question. Saguna Sakar is there, but finally it's Niragun Nirakar only, right? Again, this question will come after 20 years also. There they're not intellectually convinced, right? Maybe
Right. So it's
because
more of an acceptance thing.
yeah, maybe God, that's their path probably, right? But
Yeah.
the fact is, Sagun Sakar form as well, it's an acceptance part of it. But I'll tell you one more thing. Even the Nirgun Nirakar, even to get Brahma Gyan, you have to get God's grace. And God cannot grace in Nirakar form, Nirgun form. So finally, you have to become Sharnagat to Sagun Sakar only. When you will
Right.
reach the peak of Nirgun Nirakar, then your Guru will tell you, now you need God's grace to even get Brahma Gyan. Then you have to surrender to Sagun Sakar. But when you surrender to Sagun Sakar, you still don't want Sagun Sakar because all your life you have worshipped him as a Nirgun Narakar. So he said, okay, I'll meet you like that only. So this is what happens. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And some people say Atma Gyan is same as Brahma Gyan. That is also not correct. Atma Gyan is knowing yourself. Knowing yourself is not knowing God. You have just known the drop of an ocean, right? There's a still whole sea out there. But you get Brahma Gyan after you become Sharnagat to Saguna Sakar. That is a very deep concept. But even after seeing Sagun Sakar, you realize God in his Nirakar, Nirgun Swarup only because that is what you have worshipped him always. And that is what you wanted him always like. And God said, okay, I'll meet you like that only.
So Nitinji, if the opportunity presents, should we, I mean, again, we have to test the waters, right? You don't go out of your way to try and convince or basically tell them that it's Sakar also, because for people like us who believe in Sakar, we believe in Nirakar also. So, but it's not the case with others when they are into Nirakar.
True. So the real understanding is people who say God is Nirakar only, they are incorrect. People who say God is Sakar only, they are also incorrect. It
Right.
is God is not only Nirakar but also Sakar. That is the thing. Right? When people say God is only Nirakar, is it God saying, oh, my power has gone away, now I can only be Nirakar, no, I cannot take on a form like you because I'm powerless? Of course not. This logically, that doesn't make sense. We can have a form. This whole world is created in forms. Why can't God have a form? In fact, our scriptures say everything in our scriptures which is mentioned, like Ganges, River Ganga, Yamuna, even with Vedic Richas, each Veda has a personal form. So we can't limit God to say you can only be formless. I can have a form. But it's not a point of discussion because people who believe in Nirakar only, unless they get grace by God or they come across a saint who can explain them that philosophy, they will not be able to understand. Right? So maybe it's their path only. But there are a lot of people who do understand it, and they pick up on the Sagun Sakar aspect of it as well. So we say that Bhagwan ye hi hai. He ko bhi se replace kar do. Ye bhi hai aur ye bhi hai. Right? But Sagun Sakar is much more sweeter form of God,
Yeah.
right? You can enjoy. Like Gopi said, what are we going to do with the Brahma, which cannot interact, which cannot move his hands, right? Who cannot see us, touch us, feel us? What are we going to do with that God? Right? But if you go to Gyanis, they will say, oh, Nirakar and all light is good for me. So it really depends upon our propensities and our sanskars as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Yes, Pratyusha. All right. 5 more minutes.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe, everyone. Sir, I was just same on Monica's question. I was actually thinking, so I might add, maybe it is helpful, I don't know, that when in the Brahmanandis, what happens is they are actually, they have restrained their senses so much from the sense enjoyment. They are sitting, they are controlling their mind, keeping their eyes on the ajna, and, always thinking about one thing. So they have total vairagya from the world. So they don't have to do anything. They don't want to serve. They don't they're not interested in anything. But maybe in some other lifetime they have a little bit of devotion, samskar in them. So when they totally practice this whole thing of complete vairagya, they don't want to be in this world. They don't want to do anything, and then they do the worship of Sakar and they get realized. But the what realization that they have is complete Brahmanand, and they don't want to come back or do anything on on this world. So probably
True.
that is
True.
that's
Very
like, for
true.
example, Sukha Muni also. He was a Brahmanandi, but he had that devotion when the right time came and the right information came, so he became realized.
True. In fact, Maharaji used to say that, Brahmanandis, very few souls who might have had sprouts of devotion in one of their lifetimes may get that opportunity, right? With God's grace, but not many, they don't want it. So God says, all right, that's fine. He used to say moksha or Brahmananda as spiritual suicide. He said, if you have to get the prize of God, why not go for the highest one? Why limit yourself at moksha or Brahmananda alone? Go for Premanand. That is much higher and much more sweeter. But yes, really depends on our sanskars and what we want, right? It's not something you can talk somebody into it or out of it. Only when Guru meets them and they have some sanskars and God graces them, it can happen. But it's a choice that even Brahmanand is a great state to be in, right? You are beyond the clutches of Maya at that point. So it's a spiritual prize if you look at it that way. Although there are better possibilities than that as well in the path of devotion. So thank you, Pratisha. Good. Yes, Shanti ji, please go ahead. Please fill out the feedback tracker. I think it's already been posted, so please do fill it out. Yes, Shanti ji, please go ahead.
Radha, I have one doubt. Whatever the same question which they have put up, whichever God we are worshipping, shall we consider that there is only one supreme, and all this power, all these are his rupas,
Yes.
can we consider like that? Is it right?
Yes, that is right. So Shanti ji, look at it this way. When you look at your father, you don't get confused that, when my father goes to office, he's in this dress. Now, when he's playing with kids, he's in a different dress. Or when he goes to bed, he's in a different dress. Or when he goes out for jogging, he's in a different dress. It's the same father, right? Same way, we don't get confused. You simply see all the forms of God as the veritable form of your Ishtadev only. He's in a different mood. All right, today my father is feeling like having a flute, and today he feels like holding a Dhanushman. You don't get confused. You don't discriminate in your head. So that is the real understanding. It's not like you have multiple gods going on there. Okay, it's not polytheism. Actually, it's only one God. It's a different forms of God. It's like one moon, you see 1,000 reflections if there are 1,000 vessels below. You pick your Ishtadev and deepen that relationship. Okay, that Anandata will take you much further as opposed to you distributing it across 10 different things on your altar. That is the whole idea.
Sure.
Makes sense. Yes, Kumarji, last one for the day. And then we'll continue tomorrow. We'll get a new, we'll move on to our next shloka. And then, of course, the quiz is there as well. So we'll continue with our sessions with the same. I think we're going a little over, but that's fine. We'll take the last one today for the day.
Jai Shri Ram, Jai Hanuman. I think this question comes up, right, many times. Is it the form of God, or is the Nirakar, or is it are the atheists right? Now, if you see, there are a lot of pros and cons. People talk about this and very kind of passionately and all that stuff. So when it comes to which is better,
there's no
need to be judgmental at all, right? We don't need to be judgmental at all, and let each person do what they need to do. We don't need to discuss it. We don't need to have a huge this one. We just say, you do whatever is good for you. I respectfully, we can have our own idea, right? We don't need to take other people's, we can take other people's ideas, or we don't need to. And something gels, something sinks in us, right? Something feels right in us, and we go with that, right? And basically, we don't need to argue with anyone. What they do is right for them, but they have God in them, we have God in us. Just respectfully, if it doesn't suit us, respectfully decline, and just go our way, right? So nothing is better than the other. So everything is the same. Everything is God. There's one God. So I think as
thank you, Kumar.
Said that.
It's not a matter of debate. Yeah, thank you. I think very valid point. It's not a matter of debate. We don't debate or say this is better or that is better. Theoretically is what we are discussing, because we are here on a study session, right? What our scriptures are saying, what does the theory say is what we are discussing. It's not a point of discussion which is better or not, but from a theoretical standpoint, it's better to have understanding around this concept so that we can make an informed decision, right? That is all the whole idea is. For that matter, if you want to have a reference to it, you can go and check Shloka 12.1 and 12.2. Okay, where Arjun is asking the same question. Okay, he's saying between those who are steadfastly devoted to your personal form and those who worship the formless Brahman, who do you consider to be more perfect in yoga? This is a question asked by Arjun in 12.1. You can go and check it out, and Lord Krishna has responded to that as well. Okay, so from a theoretical standpoint, yes, it's important to understand what is the difference between two paths, which one is more sweeter, and then we take our informed decision around it, right? It's not about better or other thing. It's just about making an informed decision. And of course, more than us choosing a path will choose us. More than us choosing a guru will choose us. So we have to honor that and continue moving along. But yes, now we are in a study session. We have to know all the aspects of our scriptures, right? What they are talking about this particular topic, because this topic comes up often, whether you like it or not. I have gone through this journey myself, right? Sitting with Vedantis. It's important to know that aspect of it. That doesn't mean we start debating with people and telling that whatever they are doing, continue to do that. That is the whole thing. Okay, so thank you again for a very fascinating, engaging discussion. I look forward to meeting you tomorrow, and we will pick up the next shloka and continue with our discussion. And I think we're going to have quiz as well this week. So thank you again. Radhe Radhe. Good night. Good day from my side. Please fill out the feedback tracker if not already. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.